Good morning from my closet. I'm going to tell you a story today. There once was a little girl, and she was afraid of everything. She was afraid of birthday parties, and she was afraid of school. She was afraid of going to play at other people's houses, and she was afraid of eating strange foods. She was afraid of going to youth group at church and singing in the children's choir. She only wanted to stay home with her mom and play with her dolls and be by her mom. She was an anxious, terrified little girl, and her mother used to joke that she had a permanent crease in the hem of her dress from her holding on to her. Now, this little girl went to church, and of course, she was far too afraid to go to any of the youth activities, so she spent all of her time at church, usually sitting with the grown-ups in the sanctuary, hearing the different sermons that were preached. And it was a Baptist church, and the tradition with the Baptist churches is that at the end of every sermon, because it's your choice whether you want to be baptized or not, they give an invitation to come forward and accept the Lord into your heart and choose to be baptized. And it wasn't just baptism like you might be familiar with the sprinkle of water on the head. This was a full immersion baptism. The church actually had a tank where you could be baptized. And every Sunday, the minister would give an invitation to come forward, and he talked about having Jesus come into your heart and being peaceful and safe and not afraid. And this little girl every Sunday would hear this, and she began to think, well, maybe she should do this. But she couldn't walk up front. And she definitely couldn't get baptized because you're going to be surprised. But she was afraid to put her face under the water, let alone in front of people. And every Sunday, though, she'd feel like she was being pushed out of the pew and she had to go to the front. And every Sunday she would actually pray that she wouldn't feel that way. And she would look down at her hands holding tightly under the pew because she didn't want to step out there in that big long aisle and walk up in front of all those grown-ups. She was only 8, you know. But one Sunday she couldn't not. She actually felt like she was pushed out. And she walked up front, but she wasn't alone. She had company with her. And she felt a peace as she walked forward in the church that she had never felt before. And she thought, oh my goodness, this is it. This is that peace of having Jesus come into your heart. This is what the minister is talking about. And so she went through all the steps that were required to be baptized. She met with the deacons, a whole group of men. And just one night, she put on this cute little robe, and they had to put a bench in the water because she was so little. And she got baptized. And of course, remember about not wanting to put her face under the water. And as the minister dunked her under, there was a moment where she wanted to go, "Ah!" And she could tense up, and then she felt like she was being hugged. And she was the most peaceful she had ever been under that water. And for the rest of her life, that's all she's ever sought, that wonderful peacefulness. Now, of course, I'm talking about myself. And of course, I'm telling you about when I was baptized at age 8. But there's one other piece that you have to know. It wasn't until I was in my 40s, maybe 50s, and doing women's conferences that I was decided that I would recount that story at the conference I was at. And as I was writing it down, I wrote about the three people, me and the pastor. 3 people. Well, it was just me and the pastor. But no, when I would search back my memory, clearly there were 3 of us up front, without any doubt. And that's how I remember that, standing up front with the pastor and 3 people. And I think that was God with me, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, however you want to put it. And that presence, that undeniable, childlike memory is still the anchor of my faith here at 62. Do you have a story like that? I have a verse I'm going to read. This is from John, and it's from the Message. So it's kind of different than what you normally think. This is John 16, the last verses of that chapter. I think it's 30, 31. And this is Jesus talking to his disciples. I've told you all this so that trusting me, you will be unshakable and assured, deeply at peace. In this godless world, you will continue to experience difficulties. But take heart, I've conquered the world. This Sunday I'm preaching at North Branch. The little girl in me is a nervous wreck. But I'm not going to be alone up there.